Hey, Freedom Families! This is part 2 of my conversation with Jacki Anderson. If you have not listened to part 1, stop right now, go back, listen to part 1. It was released 2 days ago, and then come back and listen to part 2. Can you talk about, you said you've been in your home now for about 2 years.
hmm
Can you talk about before you moved to where you are now, what the discussion was between you and Bryce, where you wanted to move, what you wanted it to look like, what was your vision for your home now, and then what you're doing now that you're in your home as you look forward, what kind of home are you currently building for your family?
Okay, that's a great question. Well, when we lived in Mankato, we found our home there. It was a foreclosure, and when we were looking for homes, I bet we looked at 25 homes within our budget,
Mm,
and none of them were just like, yes, this is what we wanted. We walked into this home in Mankato off of Sandpiper and Pool Road. And it
mhm.
was a mess. I mean, there was garbage everywhere. The backyard was overgrown. And I walked in though, and the first thing I was like, yep, this is my home. I mean, I
Mm,
just knew, and it was crazy. But I think what happened was my brother had a business and he would go in and clean out foreclosed homes. And I worked with him for one summer. And I remember just seeing these beautiful, beautiful homes just trashed because people
mm.
were losing their homes. This was, gosh, back in the time where we went through the housing
Yeah.
crash again. And
Mhm.
so just people were losing, they couldn't afford their homes. And so I think for me, I could see how great the house was going to be once you cleaned it up. And Bryce and I are not fancy people. We like just to be minimal. And again, with kids, you really can't have much fancy because it's
Mhm. Yeah.
everything becomes a toy for them or a
Mhm.
drawing board or something. So, excuse me. But anyways, they or we moved into this house and we did a lot of work to it. We did new floors, we painted the backyard. For me, all I saw was our kids playing in the backyard. And so it was fenced in, knowing that Pool Road was so busy. I was like, I could
Mm.
just put my
Mhm.
kids in the backyard and they're going to be safe. And so that's where I saw that house. And we lived there for about 10.5 years, which again, our goal, we said when we moved there, we said, okay, 10 years is our goal, and then we'll look for something. And it just happened to be that's exactly what it was. And so we did a lot of work there, loved it. That was where it was hard leaving there because that's where I brought all four kids home from the hospital. You have all these connections to your
Yeah.
homes, but I guess you got to I it was hard for me, but to think about where we were going. So we moved out of there and thought, okay, we're going to rent a townhome. So we had a two-bedroom townhome, teeny tiny place, six of us living in it, and we
Mhm.
thought 6 months at the most. That's all it's going to
Yeah.
19 months later, we finally
Mhm.
moved into our country home. And so again, I guess that's where when you think about we have these plans and we think we're going to do this and that, and God says, "Ha, we're
Mhm.
just going to sit here for a while because I need to teach you some patience and teach you to rely on me, not what you think you can do." So again, in a small home, I feel like we built really a great family structure there too because we were forced six of us on a couch because that's all we could fit in this tiny little living room. And so we were all cuddling with each other and the floor became our place where we were doing stuff at. I no longer had my homeschool room. We were doing homeschooling at the kitchen table. So that became our spot where we hung out a lot. And while the townhome wasn't the greatest thing, it really actually was a great thing for our family. So then in April of 2019. Yeah, we're at 21 now. That is when, well, actually, the house came on the market in November of 18. We came and looked at it. And again, right away, I was like, yep, this is the home. This is what I want. I walked in and I saw everything that we needed. And I could just see my family growing here. Well, at
Mhm.
that time, Bryce was still on crutches. He had had his second, he had torn his, oh my gosh, why can't I think of it? In your ankle, Achilles.
Achilles?
Yes, his Achilles, and tore it actually twice. The second time was doing his rehab, so he had to have
Mm.
surgery again. So in hindsight, us being in that townhome again, I was his driver. I was taking him to work, picking him up
Where
from
was
work.
the townhome?
It was in North Mankato.
Okay.
Yep. So it worked well as far as if we would have been out here in Waldorf at that time. I mean, I would have been driving so much had he been hurt. Being out in the country, he couldn't have done anything. It just, again, God knew exactly what was going to happen. And he knew, nope, we're going to stay here in this townhome for a while because changes are coming. And so I love how God does that for us too. But
Mhm.
anyway, so then here we are. Bryce was just like not sold on it. He was like, I don't know. I don't even want to go upstairs and I don't want to go downstairs. But we have this amazing attic here in this home that was just essentially storage for them. It is now going to become our homeschool classroom and our little reading nook area and our workout place. So we are so close to being done with that space. We just have a little bit more of insulation to put up, and then we can start sheetrocking it, and it's just going to be, I'm so excited for it. But of course, here we are 2 years in the making, and but there's always projects to do here, which again is what makes Bryce happy too. He loves working on stuff like that,
Yeah.
because that is also something that relaxes him. So he knew, for Bryce growing up in Hopkins and being a city boy, his
Mm.
heart has always been in the country. He loves hunting. He loves being outside. He loves working outside. And that's what makes him happy. So when we were looking at where we're going to move, we just always knew country life. We just really want to be self sustainable in the sense of, if we have our own animals, we can, we've got our food here.
Mhm.
We have a huge garden, and I'm learning how to can and freeze our vegetables. I've learned how to can meat, which I thought,
That's
ooh,
cool.
it is cool, but my mind was like, ew, canned meat? That
Oh,
sounds
yeah.
gross. But it is
Sam.
so, yes, spam, yes, but it is so delicious. And so,
How have you learned these skills? Have you been Googling, YouTubing, or do you have somebody who's been teaching you these things?
well, actually, my mom canned all the time. But when I think about it, I didn't do stuff with her growing up. And so I think about how much I am so much like my mom, even though I hung out more with my dad as a kid. I just was always closer to my dad. But I do so much like my mom. I cook like her. I probably clean and do everything like her, which is so weird. But
Yeah.
I mean, I obviously picked up on stuff, even though I like to be outside with my dad too. I like to be helping him with the lawnmower and doing, I was always outside doing that kind of stuff. So, but yeah, I use my mom as a resource. She taught me how to use my pressure cooker. And I think when I think about that too, I'm like, I want my kids to be able to come to me and say, Mom, how can we do this? And it might not
Yeah.
be, when they're older, they might go, Nope, I don't want to do that. That wasn't really what I liked growing up. But I don't foresee that because they do like being outside. But I don't know. I don't want to push them into doing something they, again, don't want to do. But it's also a skill that I think is going to the wayside too, where a lot of this, I think when you look back at 2019 and 20, where people, I mean, all of a sudden we had nothing. We were
Yeah.
stuck at home. We were doing so. I think a lot of people kind of forgot, like, there's a lost art into a lot of stuff that they used to do in the so-called olden days, when there was
Yep.
no TV, there was no internet, you worked all day long outside. That's what you did. You got
Yep.
up when the sun came up, and you
Mhm.
went to bed as soon as the sun was going down because you knew your day started over again. And so I think that's what we kind of want to get to as well with our kids is
Yeah.
the work ethic. We want them to have a work ethic. Like this is what work means. It's you're going to go outside and it's going to be hot and you're going to sweat, but then you're going to come into the house and go, "Wow, look at what I just did today."
Right.
So,
I think about the difference between how you see a bunch of articles out today or the way that, at least in the Western world, we think about work. A lot of people are saying, "Oh, we'd be even more productive if we went down to 4 days,
yeah.
only worked 4 days a week," versus the way that God lays out creation in the Bible, and, he created the world in 7 days, rested on the 7th, and he laid it out for us to do the same, right? Even before the fall, he made us to
Mhm.
work for 6 days and then to rest on the 7th day, and how different that is than our only in a prosperous nation, right? Could we say, "Oh, I think we should only work 4 days a week."
Right.
And then, you know, eh, I would say that so much of the 3 days off that people would do would be like watching Netflix or just kind of being lazy versus with your home, you are working on house projects, you're gardening, you're gonna get animals. There are things that you are making your home, which I really love. You're not just looking for a home that's already pre-made and it's exactly how you want it. You are taking something, and as you grow as a family, you're also making that place, that property, that home into something beautiful. And
Right.
I'm guessing, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm guessing you plan to be there forever.
Oh yeah, this is our final place. Yep. We said once we move here, the kids will be hauling us out of here. So so yep, this is it and we know there's going to be projects to do probably until we can't do projects anymore. Cuz that's just home ownership, but we are trying to, since in 2 years that we've been here, I think we've planted almost 325 trees. Uh,
Whoa,
yes, so that's the other thing, like Bryce's goal is to make a deer haven here or
okay.
a wildlife sanctuary, so to speak. So the kids and grandkids will come and hunt, on our property. And that's his goal.
Yeah.
When you think about like yeah, we want it great right now for our kids, but we're also looking along the lines of, bringing the grandkids home and their families coming here. And who knows, maybe one of our kids will end up buying the property when we can't be here. But that's our,
Mhm.
is hopefully we're building something where one of our kids doesn't want to see it go. So,
Yeah. I
mhm.
I I can't tell you how much I love that. I wanted to ask you about, the process of finding that home because that's something that we, have talked about quite a bit too, and finding a property with so much acreage, and if, we move somewhere and even have our parents, live with us, whether we would add on an addition or if there's already kind of like a mother-in-law area of the home. But when you were in that townhome, were you working with a realtor? Did you tell the realtor, "Hey, we would really like to be in the country. We're thinking something 5 acres or more." How many houses did you look at before you found the one?
Oh yeah. Yes, and actually, before we even listed our house on Sandpiper, we were probably already looking for a country home 4 years before that. So we just have we knew what we wanted, and yes, we had a realtor, and she was. I mean, she's a good friend of ours now because you kind of get to know somebody after you've looked at
Mm. Mhm.
umpteen houses.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, Dara is awesome, and she knew exactly what we wanted. So yes, we knew we wanted more than 5 acres because a lot of the properties we originally thought 5 acres would be great, but then once you started looking at it, we're like, oh well, 5 acres that's really not a lot.
Hmm.
Um, and so, depending on what you want to do again. So like Bryce is a big deer hunter. And so you kind of, yeah, 5 acres you could do it on, but to really build that population, it's better to have more than that. The other big thing we started finding out was different areas of southern Minnesota. So when you're if Mankato's our central location as far as Bryce's business. We knew we wanted to be 30 minutes within that travel time. So we went and saw many houses towards the Lake Crystal side. That was so much more expensive than
Oh,
where we are now. Yeah, it's crazy because Lake Crystal, which is such an easy commute, coming up 60 169, that's so easy for people to jump on. That's a hot area over there.
okay.
And
Hmm.
so prices actually were a lot more expensive. We even looked in the LeSueur Henderson area.
Yeah.
And that's some of them we found were, where, oh, this is a great property, but the house was so run down. So we also
Oh,
knew financially we don't have a ton of money to always, to do actually to gut a house. We didn't have that money. We knew
mhm.
though we could buy sheetrock, we can buy, different stuff where we can make small changes in the home. But so that was the other thing. We knew a basement was important to us. And some of the old homes, I mean, when you get down into the 1900s, you're looking at a dirt basement, block basement out in the
Yeah.
country.
Mhm.
And for us, yes, that could work if you need a shelter, but we also knew with our family, if we don't have enough space on the main floor, then you need something else,
Yeah.
for the kids to go to. So that was another thing that was important for us as far as looking at a house. And
So like
actually
a finished basement or a finishable basement?
yes, absolutely. Yep, because even this
Okay.
house we're in, they had moved. This house actually was a group home when we bought it.
Oh,
Yep, so
okay.
they were closing this down. The individuals that were here were going to different places. And so the layout of this house is amazing. It's wide because they had to have wheelchair accessibility. And
Oh,
so
yeah.
everything is wide. And they did an addition on. So instead of just a two-bedroom house, this is actually a four-bedroom house. And they moved it onto a new basement. So this house, while it's a 1951 house, the basement was awesome, but unfinished. And so we've made two different bedrooms down there. So all three boys are down in the basement. We just added an egress window into Declan's bedroom. So now we have an egress on each side of the house. And then our goal is to be able to put a bathroom down there as well for them. So it's nothing, they're living with curtain walls right now, but they don't care because they
Yeah.
have their own room
Yeah.
and the space. But yes, so we wanted a basement. And then Corrigan has her room on the main floor with Bryce and I. And so there were, I think, as far as property goes, once we came out to the Waldorf sector, and this again is seeing how God had this lined up for us. The first house that we thought we were going to get here in Waldorf was 20 acres. The house was old, closer to town, but the property was okay. Bryce wasn't set on it. And so we tried to work with the family. The kids owned it, and they just wouldn't accept any of our offers. So we just were like, nope, we're just going to walk away. We can't keep trying to make things work.
Yeah.
Then the second house, we found a property which is not far from Waldorf here either. 17 acres, beautiful property. No house though. So we had found a house we were going to move on to the property and go that route because that was cheaper than building. But
Oh, okay.
then we couldn't get financing to come through. The appraisal didn't come through. The appraisal came in higher than the bank was going to give us a loan for. So then they said, well, if you can get money, maybe your parents will give you money, maybe this, maybe that. And we're like, nope, this isn't where we're supposed to be. We don't want to, we're
Mhm.
adults here. We're not asking our parents for stuff. And
Right.
so we walked away from that one too. And then lo and behold, where we are now is almost directly in the middle of those two properties in Waldorf. So we had a feeling God was leading us to this direction, considering what was happening in between. And again, the cost of this property we got 10 acres and the house we got and the outbuildings. The barn is just beautiful. Yes, it needs some work, but it's still structurally sound. We couldn't afford to build the outbuildings we have. And so looking at that and the price we got this at, we could have never found any of this towards the um
The Lake
West,
Crystal? Or
yep, west side, yep, south or west of Mankato. New Ulm was expensive that direction. Um, and so this was, location is a big part too, is, you're going to find areas that have cheaper homes because people don't really want to go that way. So their
mhm.
homes are set to sell.
Right.
And now looking at Waldorf, I've gotten to know the mayor a little bit too, and we have a lot of younger families moving in because
Ah,
older families, are, have either, passed or they're moving into the city where they can have assistance or whatever. And
yeah.
so, yeah, younger families now are coming out to the smaller towns. And so, I mean, that's fun to hear too, that people are kind of wanting to get out of the city life and
Yeah.
just to have some quietness, I think. So,
What, for Waldorf, is there a, an actual town with a gas station and maybe like a bar or restaurant of some
yep,
kind?
there is a bar restaurant here, and that's pretty much all. There's a bank. There is a small little library. We have a post office. But the mayor, he's really trying. He bought the old middle school that was the middle school for JWP. And
Oh,
so
okay.
he had purchased that with hopes of starting a charter school, but that didn't work. So now he's got plans to bring in a daycare into that. He is also looking, because it sounds like JWP is also growing, that they may start moving, doing some elementary classes there. And he also is looking to bring in a gas station. We are in the process right now. He's doing a new city water and sewer system, so
Hmm.
water treatment plant. And so all the streets are getting redone, which is really badly needed. We tried to rollerblade on the streets in Waldorf, and it wasn't it wasn't
Mm.
going very well with all the rocks and potholes and stuff. But so he's all the streets are getting redone. He's looking to bring in possibly a barbecue restaurant joint,
Sounds like he's really
maybe.
wanting to revive the area.
Oh, yes, yep, and his goal too, he wants to get in a splash pad, like Mapleton has a
Oh,
splash
nice.
pad, and
Yeah,
so, yeah, he's got some great, great ideas, and he is a go-getter, and I love that because if we can do more in Waldorf, I'd be happy to go be in Waldorf and do whatever we need to do,
yeah.
versus going into Mankato or, to Wasika or whatever around us, so, yeah, it's great.
Can you tell me, tell the listeners about some of the things. So I think another you had mentioned when Bryce first came home and said, "Let's talk about homeschooling,"
Mhm,
your main concern was, "What about socialization?" Well, I
mhm,
think right with that, when women or moms think about staying home and they think about being a stay-at-home mom, being a homeschool mom, so when moms or women think about the possibility of staying home and or being a homeschool mom, they think, "Oh, this is going to be boring. Like, where am I gonna get my adult connection?
mhm,
What are some of the things that I can do to stay connected with people?" So tell us some of the things that first, what do your kids do? Because you mentioned you can do tons of different activities, and I know your kids do some activities with other kids from outside of your home. So what are some of the things that they do? And then what are some of the things that you do to connect with others or be involved in things outside of the home?
yep. Yes. So, when looking at homeschooling, I remember thinking, how am I going to do this? Like, I
Mm.
got out of teaching because I want to just be with my kids, and now you're asking me to teach my kids. And so I was thinking, oh man, what does that mean? Well, looking at it, I feel like from the get go, preschool is pushed on families. Like, if your kids don't go to preschool, they're going to be so far
Yep,
behind all these
yep.
other kids. And it is
Mhm.
such a lie. I'm just going to say it is such a lie because preschoolers learn through play, and they can play at home till their heart's content, and you can teach them how to respect others. You can teach them, you know, I when I think about it, I had one friend of mine, she never took her kids grocery shopping because she just couldn't do it. But that is the time where I would take my kids and teach them Okay, hold the
Yep.
door open for this person. Let's
Mhm.
talk about math today when we're buying groceries. No, that's
Mhm.
not acceptable behavior. Teaching them
Right.
how to act in public. But if you never take them to do that, they're not going to learn, obviously. Um,
Mhm.
so that was a big part of thinking about homeschooling. I was like, oh, I don't know how I can do this. But I kind of stepping back here a minute, I'll just say I struggle with anxiety and depression. And this actually didn't come out in me. I didn't know what was going on with me until I was about 41 years old. So after
Mm.
Declan, my last, was born, I remember just, I guess, hitting rock bottom, so to speak. I couldn't control my anger anymore. And I just remember telling Grace, I'm like, something is not right. This is not how I should be with my kids. I want to be with them, but yet I didn't want to be with them, if that made sense.
Yeah. Mhm.
Um, and so this is, we're already talking, child number 4 here. And then it was causing, hardships with Bryce and I too, because I
Mm.
would take my frustrations out on Bryce, or my anxiety would come out on him, because I knew he was my husband. I knew he wasn't going to get up and walk out on me. And so he was essentially my punching bag, and that
Yeah.
wasn't fair for him either. So, um, to look back on where I was and now who I am with my kids, therapy was a huge, huge game changer for me, to talk to somebody that didn't know my family situation, as far as my siblings and my parents. Not that it was bad, it was never bad, but I was dealing with anxiety and depression as a kid, and we didn't know about it. So I look
Mhm.
back at how many people thought I was just a spoiled brat that always wanted my way, and I would just get angry, and
Yeah.
that's not. And when I look back, I'm like, oh my gosh, we knew nothing.
Yeah.
So, and then obviously I got on medication, and it has made me so much better. So looking at who I was then and now, I'm just amazed at what God has done with me and through me, using my anxiety and my depression to better other people's lives. And I know I just got way off topic here, but
No,
and,
thanks for
and
sharing
so
that. Thank
and
you.
so looking at my homeschooling life, um, and what we do, I had to get out of my comfort zone of being at home. So it was easy for me to stay at home because I didn't have to make new friends, and I didn't have to try to make conversation, and I didn't have to worry if
Mhm.
somebody was going to like me or not, or
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. That kept
Mhm.
me home for a while, and of course that wasn't good for my kids. So when I left teaching, which I felt like that's where my friends were, because I moved to Mankato for my teaching job. So that's where my friends were at school. Now I leave teaching, I have nothing. Like, I was like, now who do I connect with? Now what do I do? Because you kind of realize very quickly that if you're not in the school building all day with these people, you kind of don't talk to them anymore. And so,
Yeah.
and that was hard. But I found myself, I got asked if I wanted to join MOPS,
Mm.
or
Mhm.
I had also started learning about BSF, which was a Bible study fellowship.
Mhm.
And so I was trying to think about it, and I'm like, you know what? I really felt my heart being tugged towards BSF because I wanted to learn more. I grew up Catholic. I didn't feel like I had a strong faith. I knew I had to go to church as a Catholic, but that's
Yeah.
kind of all I knew. And so that's how I was going to go to heaven, was making sure I went to church every Sunday. And
Mhm.
I just remember thinking and hearing Bryce talk, and I was like, gosh, I just want to be more than what I am right now. So I chose Bible study fellowship. And when I look back and think about friendships right now, some of my very good friends right now are from BSF my first couple of years. And so I need good, strong Christian women in my life, because if I don't have them, I find myself going back to who I was, and I don't want to be that way. It's easy to get pulled back into the, ooh, let's be the fun Jackie, and, do things that you think is fun, or your feelings are brought into the play of, like, oh, but you'll feel happy, and you'll feel
Yeah.
like, so
Mhm.
accomplished, and you'll feel loved, and
Yeah.
when, nope, the Bible says you can't do that. The Bible says that's not,
Mhm.
what you should be doing. And so um, BSF really got me into the word, and that is also where I just crave for my kids, is to be in the word and know and start to build their own relationship with God, not my relationship, because I can't force my relationship with the Holy Spirit onto them. They have to figure
Mhm.
out their own way with the Holy Spirit. And that's our goal too with our kids, is that they just grow up loving Jesus and just knowing that what no matter what is going on in their life, he's there for us. God is never going to leave us. He's always here, good times and bad, joy and sorrows. He's here. And so that's my big thing for my kids. But BSF is where I got my a lot of my good friendships right now, and I try to still stay connected. As moms, we know we get busy, and our kids start to take, a lot of our time. And so
Yeah.
I think we forget about, it's okay for us to need some time too. And I've gotten better at that too. Just going, you know what? My kids are old enough now, they can make their own dinner. And if I want to go have dinner with a friend, I can do that now. And I don't have to prepare everybody's meal before I leave, because they're going to be okay if I leave and have my own time. As far
Yeah.
as my kids too, we joined co-ops, or we had a co-op down here, a Christian co-op that we were in for I think 6 years, and this last year was our first year not doing it. And I think it was just time we all needed a break, because it gets busy too with that.
Mm.
But we also, co-op is where we've made, my friend or my kids have great friends through co-op. And a lot of times it's their moms that I'm also friends with too. So you start, finding ways for, I guess, ways to find different friendships in a way that you need to be refueled too. So for me, it's having a conversation with another Christian friend that refuels me. Or I haven't done a Bible study, like a group Bible study, in a while, because I feel like my kids always have something going on. But so that's why I think it's important for me to make sure I still have those connections with women that can keep me on a path that is towards Christ. And because even just conversations that lead to the Bible is awesome. So kids activities, I mean, they're in taekwondo. They do homeschool taekwondo classes during the day. They are now doing jujitsu. We've done baseball in the summertime. Now our kids are starting to find, well, it's not really what I want to do. So then we still want them to be active in some way. So they have to find something that they want to do then. We're not going to
Mhm.
force sports on them if they don't want to do it. And but they have to find ways to be active. They can't just play video games and watch
Right.
TV, because that's not good for them. So
Mhm.
but yeah, Corrigan does gymnastics through Community Ed in Wasika. So we just find different ways to do stuff, but we also know that our family time is very important to us. So we don't overschedule. One,
Mm.
that makes me kind of turn into a crazy mom. And then two, it's not good for our kids. They start to get tired. They just want some downtime. We really do like to just have cuddle time on the couch. That's our big thing. And if my kids want that love, I want to be there to give it to them too. So,
Yeah. Let kids be bored. I say
yeah.
that a lot, especially little kids, because if you're gonna constantly entertain your kids or push a screen in front of your kids, they're not gonna learn how to be creative. They're not gonna learn how to occupy themselves, and it's so beneficial to let your kids be bored.
Oh, yeah.
That's what
Oh,
I
yeah.
think.
Yep. Because Declan's always like, "What am I gonna do?" I'm like, "I don't know. Go outside and figure out something." There's
Mhm.
so much to do outside, and then eventually he's outside and he's playing in the sand, or he's riding his bike, or he does figure it out. But I'm like, I'm not gonna keep holding your hand for everybody. So
Yeah.
yeah, they have to make sure that they can, like you said, figure out if they're bored, what can I do then? Yep.
Yep. One last question I have for you is just how you guys are involved in a church and the role that a body of believers has in your life as a homeschool family.
My goodness, yes. So as I mentioned, earlier in this, we were when we first got married at Bethel Baptist, and Bryce had made a connection with the associate pastor there, which was awesome. But then he left, and so I saw Bryce, lose his interest in going to church. And I remember thinking, so almost for a whole year, I was taking the kids, and he would come, once in a while. But I remember just hearing, I think Pastor Dave had talked about, the man being the head of the home and, the leader in your home. And so after I heard that, I went home and I was just like, Bryce, before I keep getting more involved here at Bethel, I need you to figure out where you need to be, because I am not the one, I was starting to teach Sunday school, and I was starting,
Mm,
to get involved in some other moms groups there. And I thought, I don't want to be doing all this if he doesn't want to be there. So that's when he was just like, you're right. I just am having a hard time. And so we thought, okay, we're going to take the next month and visit different churches, see where maybe God's going to lead us to. And we ended up at Elevate, where now we've been there for 7 years. And at the time we went to Elevate, they were in a pastoral transition. So they hadn't even had the new pastor there yet, but we felt led to stay there.
mm,
And in hindsight now, obviously God had many plans for us being at Elevate. Bryce is now an elder and, is on the board and just has made some amazing connections with some men in church, which is what he needed. He needed
mm.
that. Also, like I said, I need accountability. He needed the accountability too. We, when we think of conviction of sin, it's hard. Nobody wants to hear,
Yeah.
you're doing something sinful or being pointed out. But if we don't
Mhm,
do that as Christians and help each other, um, it's going to be really hard to do it for anybody. And we need to be able to accept that conviction and ask for, repentance and heal from it, because that, I think, man, that helps us grow so amazingly. But at
mhm.
Elevate, I find myself, I have a servant's heart, and I learned that by being at Elevate. And I just want to serve my church. And when I think about that, that makes me so happy to do that. I want to be there for others. I want to be there for the young. When I think about teaching, I really enjoyed making connections with young girls at school. And so now I find myself trying to make those connections with young girls at church, because I feel like I never really had a mentor growing up,
Mhm.
much less a good Christian. I obviously I'm a
Yeah.
sinner. I shouldn't say I'm a good Christian, but a Christian mentor. But I
Mhm.
want to be able to be there for these girls, because, man, it's harder to be a young girl now than it was when I was in school. When you think of social media and bullying
Yes.
and all
Yeah.
that, just the pressures they feel. And so I'm just trying to be there for the young ladies at church, with hopes that, if they need something, they can come to me. Um, you know, Prayer. I never thought of, growing up Catholic again, I had these structured prayers. And now I feel like, oh my gosh, I just stop and pray. Not a structured prayer, but I just stop. All of a sudden, I'm like, I need to pray for this person. And I've really learned how to pray um, with Elevate. Our pastor there, he is, I mean, he prays, and it's like, he's like, his heart is in it. And I am not there yet, but I'm trying to get there. But he is a phenomenal um, prayer, and I just love it. But and then looking at our kids, we want our kids to build relationships within the church too. With you know, I'm not trying to shield them from life that's out there, because if they leave my or when they leave my home, they're going to be um, exposed to a lot of stuff. And so I can't just shield them from all of it, because they need to know how to handle it as well. So, but
Mhm.
to have some good Christian friends at church, where if they can build these connections now, that maybe they'll be able to, carry on these relationships as they leave my home. And then if they are faced with, the hardships of being out there on their own, they will either come to us, they'll come to our pastor, they'll go to their Christian friends, rely on
Yeah.
other people to help them. And also serving their church. We really want them to understand that and not just serving Elevate, but serving the church means serving God's people. So outside
Right,
of
big
Elevate,
featured. Yeah.
yeah, yep. So volunteering your time, just serving others without feeling like, oh, what am I going to get in return? Because that's not
Mhm.
what Jesus wants for us. So we want them to be able to serve with a joyful heart and know that just if you put a smile on somebody's face, whether it's just opening the door, I feel like how many older people are just in awe when somebody like one of my boys will open the door for them, and you just think,
Mhm.
how sad is that nobody does that for people anymore? Oh,
Yeah.
and it's just such a simple thing, but it's just not done anymore. And so I just, we want that. I think service to others with our kids, or for them to do for others is a huge part of our Christian community at church. And to be honest, yeah, I grew up, having to go to church every Sunday, and it was just like something I had to do. Now it's, if I don't go to church on Sunday, I feel like, oh my gosh, my whole week is ruined. I
Yeah.
just like, I love going to church. I love the
Mhm.
fellowship. When we were closed because of everything, online church, there's nothing compares to being in church with people. Um, just being able to make connections, just to speak to people, and
Yep.
even to hug other people. It's just, it's awesome. I mean, online church, I'm glad it was there and I'm glad it was an option, but I really truly hope we have more people start coming back to the physical church because it's easy. It's easy to sit at home in your pajamas and watch church, but I even myself, I don't get enough out of it. I don't There's too many distractions. Kids
Yep.
are still needing stuff. They're not listening like they should be listening. And so just being in church is something that makes my week, like the beginning of my week, I can do it. I can go get through another week because I've been refueled with a message that almost always I needed to hear. So
Absolutely, I fully agree. I know I said one more question, but there was one that I forgot. How did your kids do with your move since you had been in that home for their entire lives thus far? How did the and I know that moves can be stressful on kids sometimes, so how did the move go for your kids?
it went really well. And I think again, the transition from our sandpiper home to the townhome was hard for them because that was
Mm,
so much smaller and they only had a tiny little side yard that they could be in. We didn't get to have our pool up that summer. And so there was a lot of different changes that they were not used to. And to be in a townhome with loud kids where you're always going, shh, shh, quiet. We have
mm,
neighbors. They can hear you through the
yeah.
walls. To
Uh-huh.
coming out to the country where I'm like, just go outside. You can make as much noise as you want. Just go outside. Or if you're in the
Yeah.
basement, they're loud and I don't care because nobody's here to hear them. And I don't feel like I'm bothering somebody else. So I know for the kids, just to be able to come out here to the country, they were super excited for it. We had talked about it a lot. I think it wasn't just something, this is what we're doing. We're going to be happy with it. We really talked about it a lot and with them, and our plans for being here and just getting the animals. They were all super excited about animals. And
Mm.
to have, and our dog Loki at the time, they would all pray, please God, just let us find a house so Loki can run around free, and he only made it, unfortunately, he only made it about 6 months, but they were still like, oh, at least he got to be here and experience the country life. And now we have two dogs. Bryce is not a cat lover, and we have two outdoor cats, and we have, it's just to see the changes that God does, for us and within us is pretty amazing. But yeah, we really built up the country life because we want our kids to enjoy it and to love it. So
Yeah. You're building a home, and
yeah,
I really love it. This you kind of were mentoring me in this discussion because, everything I asked you, I'm personally interested in, and I am excited to continue talks with Matthew about these things and to share with him what you shared with us today. So thank you for being on. Thank you for just sharing your experiences, kind of the ups and the downs, and the things that you've learned, and also your vision for the future. That was really fun to hear about.
yes, thank you, EJ. I really appreciate this, and even just you thinking of me. So I love seeing your family grow too, and your love for Christ too. And it's just fun to see, you know, the boys growing up. So again, like you said, Facebook isn't always the greatest thing, but man, it's fun to watch people's lives change for the better too. So I'm excited to see your guys' journey as well. And
Well,
thank
thank
you.
you.
Yes, thank you for doing all of this too, and trying to be the voice of Christ, and to help others see how amazing it is to be a follower. So
Yeah, well, thank you, and part of it too is wanting to build a community, just like you were kind of thinking about doing MOPS or thinking about doing BSF. This, idea that I've had and am trying to grow here is so we can also connect with real families and
mm,
build real connections and build freedom families who find freedom in Christ in all areas of life.
right, it's so awesome. Well, best of luck to you and Matthew and all you're doing too, and I look forward to chatting with you again.
I'll look forward that to that as well. Thank you, Jackie.